Hello and welcome to Because Growth Matters. I'm Daniel Robus, your host. And today we're going into a world that few of us ever see. Less of us work in it, but it makes a difference. Working for targets is one thing. Working for total world change is something else entirely. My own connection with nonprofits goes back more than 30 years. One organization changed my life simply because it was introduced to me through my wife, Jackie, to people and perspectives I would never have encountered otherwise. Since then, I've tried to stay close to NPO work wherever I can because I've seen how powerful it is when done well. I've seen the impact it can have in my life and in other people's lives. Today, we are going to meet a remarkable human who's been doing that for over 20 years. Julie-Anne Savarit-Cosenza is the founder and executive director of African Education Program. She's worked alongside young people, community leaders, women in Zambia, now in Rwanda, building long-term community-led change. AEP has supported thousands of children, youth, and women with outcomes that speak for themselves. This conversation is about leadership, it's about trust, and it's about creating lives and creating safe spaces for people to be their best. Julie-Anne, welcome to Because Growth Matters.
Thank you so much, Daniel. It's such a privilege to be here. Thank you.
It's nice to hear that. Now, you're in Zambia at the moment. Where exactly do you live?
I live in Lusaka, in the capital city, and all of our flagship work at our Learning and Leadership Center is in a town called Kafue. It's about 42 kilometers, 30-ish miles, I guess, south of the capital.
So, Julie-Anne, people can hear that you were not born in Zambia. Where were you born? Where are you from? And how did you end up in Zambia?
How the heck did I end up in Zambia? That's such a good question. So I grew up in the Philadelphia area. I am half French, half Italian American. And yes, how the heck did I end up in Zambia? I was very fortunate to have a Zambian soccer or football coach growing up. And so in our early high school years with some friends, when we were really trying to think of a service project that really benefited people, wasn't just raising money for Relay for Life or Jump Rope for Heart, would really have a personal connection. We were inspired one day. My best friend, Hillary, to this day, she's my best friend, came to the cafeteria table and said, why don't we help kids in Africa? We're 14, 15 at this time, so please mind the generalization. And I said, well, yeah, my coach is Zambian. I love Africans. I've met a lot of them, through him in this expat community. Let's do it, right? And so what started as this kind of crazy high school service project, as you mentioned, 20 years later has grown into a really impactful, life-changing organization.
What did your parents think about this the first time you came to Africa?
Even before we came to Africa, to Zambia, our parents didn't think we were serious. They figured it out when they received our 501c3 paperwork in the mail with their names on it because we weren't actually 18 at the time. So they sort of became the legal, representatives of African Education Program. And that's when they realized, oh, you kids are serious about this. And we were. And so our first work was just raising the money for a shipment, a container of gently used books, computers, and educational materials, clothes. And right at the end of senior year, 12th grade, we shipped that over. And honestly, that was supposed to be the end of the story. Not knowing, a few weeks later, we received a grant to go and travel and meet the community. And that's what changed everything. My mom, as the coolest parent in the group, got elected to be our chaperone because no one wanted their 3 teenage daughters traveling to this faraway place called Zambia alone. And she's an educator by trade. And again, that's meeting our peers that year, meeting community leaders. That's what changed everything.
Julie-Anne, if you can explain for listeners and for people watching this video who have never been to rural Zambia, what is the village like that you're working with? What are the people like? Where is it?
Well, I think that's what folks, don't know about Africa is you have the most rural places and then you have these highly urbanized areas, right? Unless you've been watching I Show Speed lately, he just did his whole 30-day tour. So folks are starting to get a sense, right, of what Africa can look like. So our work is actually mainly based in a more peri-urban area. So we're outside of the capital, which has been growing rapidly, like many cities, anywhere, right? And so we're not quite rural in the sense that it's huts, without electricity, but we have outreach programs where we do reach those types of areas. So, I have worked with students who were born in a hut without access to, clean water, electricity, and now they're becoming the first in their families to graduate from college or university. So we do have that type of outreach. Where we work is a more like a rural town, I would say. So you have more cement type structures, but many homes still don't have running water. Electricity here is very hit or miss because a lot of it is hydropowered. Most of last year, we'd only have 2 or 3 hours of electricity a day. And then you have the capital city, right? I actually work from this amazing co-working space with beautiful artwork, and you go to malls and you think you're, at any mall in the United States. It also is just highly developed, and you just have this whole spectrum of different areas here.
That's so lovely and so nice to hear. And if you had to take a friend from the States into Zambia on a week's vacation, not work, where would you go to? Where's your favorite place in Zambia?
Oh, it has to be the Victoria Falls, hands down. Most folks think Victoria Falls is only in Zimbabwe, but it's actually half in Zambia and half in Zimbabwe. And then from there, the falls are just so powerful. Whether they have a lot of water or a little water, it's just such a truly awe-inspiring place. And then from there, you get to go on safari. You cross over into Botswana, where there's an incredible national park. And just in a day or two, you can see the Big Five. And I would say, yeah, if it's only a week, that's where we're headed.
And the smoke that thunders, if you haven't been to Victoria Falls and haven't experienced it, when you're driving and it looks like there's storm clouds coming, localized storm. And then when you get to the falls, it actually rains from below. So don't take a raincoat. It's a rip. You're never going to use it. You're going to get wet. It is a life-changing experience, isn't it? It's just wonderful. Let's get on to what are you doing and why you've been here. I mean, you speak about an education fund. You started as a teenager. You started with sending through gently used books and computers. I love the way you've said that. We see a lot of that in Africa. We see a lot of people that are sitting in Philadelphia that watch a program and they think, okay, we're going to send over iPhones and make everything better. You've followed through, but you've always stayed. When did it become a long-term commitment to base yourself in Africa?
That is a really, really good question. And honestly, I'm not sure there was an actual moment that I could say, that turning point. I often find myself saying, I've quite literally grown up with my nonprofit. I was 16 when we founded and have had it ever since. And so you're right. A lot of folks think that a one-off project shipping books, it feels really good, right? It feels very tangible. I know that a child who needed educational materials now has them. I think what we don't usually take the time to understand is that is more about feeling good as the donor, or the supplier of the books, and less about truly making an impact. And I think that's why I've stayed, is we realize that 1 container, 2 container, we can feel good about ourselves. And yes, hundreds of children will be happy for an instant, but what are we really doing to change their lives, to work together to change their lives? Because it's not about me coming in and changing things. It's about how can I be in service to these community leaders, to these youth leaders, so that we can truly change things at systemic levels, right? So I think when folks are thinking about doing something good in this world, you really need to take the time to think, is this going to make me feel good? Or is this actually going to create a change that's going to last more than a day or a week or a month? And so when I say I've grown up with my nonprofit, and there was never really just that moment where I was like, oh, this is my calling or I'm meant to be here. I think it's just because we've just always been a part of each other, right? And we've grown, and that's how the work has also grown, and I have grown.
You must have had a moment when you thought, that's enough. We haven't got electricity. I don't have running water. The people just, you're seen as a savior from over the waters. Did you ever think, stuff this, I'm going home?
Oh, a few times, yes, definitely. Definitely more than once, whether it was, some of those amenities not being available, whether it was finding out that certain paperwork that had been promised had been filed, hadn't, and, we maybe have to shut down, whether it was feeling, at times even like the community we were serving felt like they were owed our work as opposed to, working together and being grateful for each other. There have been so many moments where I think we were nuts not to close down. But of course, it was worth keeping going, right?
Why do you stay?
I stay because of the impact we have, because it's worth it. And it's not about the numbers when I say the impact we have. Last year alone, yes, we worked with 5,000 children, youth, and women in a really meaningful way, right? Like, it's not about that number. To me, it's about Febby, who I knew when she was in ninth grade. And in ninth grade, she told me, I want to be a special education teacher. And today, she's actually the one leading our special education work at the center. She's truly has a vision for transforming the special ed landscape in this country. So it's for Febby. It's not about the thousands and thousands that we reach. It's these individual stories. And that's what keeps you going at the end of the day. It's the people.
How do you explain African education program to somebody over a barbecue who is in New York? What do you do?
Oh man, this is why what is our pitch, right? And I know we're supposed to be talking to sales folks, and this is where for us it is complicated. Yes, I can say, our mission is to work with community leaders to help build their initiatives in education, in health, in community development. But what does that mean? That those are just words strung together. So what we do is we are about long-term investments in communities. How do we really not just support education, just health, just community-led initiatives? We're really looking at a truly holistic approach. When you look at a child is so multifaceted, has so many challenges in their life. So how do we open enough doors so a child can overcome the majority of those challenges and really reach their full potential and really thrive one day? So the work in Zambia is very holistic in that sense. You name a project and we probably do it, right? Because we have over a dozen different programs at our Learning and Leadership Center. I would love for someone to come up with my 10-second pitch or the elevator pitch, because I struggle. It takes more than just that barbecue or braai, to really start to understand what we do. And you have to see it, you have to feel it. And our work takes decades. It's taken decades, right, to reach this point where we're at now. And what I get so excited about is when I see the kids that I knew 10, 15 years ago, right? They're not my colleagues. They're now the ones leading all this work on the ground. So I can't even imagine what this next generation is going to do. Because those kids, they were just working with me. I'm no one. I have no idea what I was doing. I wasn't from there. The kids coming through our programs now are working with our alumni who do come from there, who have a vision for their community and what they want it to look like. So imagine what these kids are going to do. They're going to be leaders, not just in our community, this country, and I think the world one day.
It's so hard because I understand where you are and the African nuances living in Johannesburg. And I'm just thinking 10 kilometers up the road, what's that, 6 or 7 miles? You could have kids staying at home in a shack because they are disabled or they have a learning disability or they cerebral palsy or special needs or on the autism scale, because their parents don't have money and the government funding is so little. So the work that you are doing to bring these kids through and to and making them part of society and a functioning part of society to earn and have a space is critical. And I don't think we understand enough of the need, because it's almost that there's a low income level. We don't think they have those challenges, except those are people that are usually working as parents 7 to 7. So when do they look after the kids? So this space that you've worked in and this community that you're at, how's it been accepted from, donors and from government? Where do you get support and where do you get kind of opposition?
The answer has evolved over time. At first, we were almost 90% funded by private donors in the US, right? Parents of our friends. To this day, we have donors who have been with us for 20 years.
I need to pause and honor those people. We don't celebrate them enough. That for all of you who are listening to donate to causes like this, I honor you here and I speak blessings over you. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Sorry about that, Julie-Anne. Carry on.
No, no, no. It's true. It's so, so true, because when you look at how many issues are going on in the world, right? And especially, and my American donors, what's going on in our country right now, right? So there's so, so much going on. How do you care about kids in Zambia, women in Zambia, right? Or in Rwanda, when the turmoil is in your backyard, quite literally. So yes, we have to honor them. We have to thank them. And when we think about it from the sales standpoint, also for us, it's how do we keep them engaged? How do we keep them interested in what we do? I could share one of the struggles we've actually had. Our donors in the past and even today sometimes become very attached to the child that they're supporting, right? Because we do direct sponsorship, we do letter writing, we share videos. And so when a donor becomes attached to the child, they don't necessarily think their gift is also going to a bigger organization, right? Because as donors, you often want to feel the direct connection. It's the same reason we started African Education Program. We wanted a personal service project where we could see our hard work and money go. And so, what donors don't necessarily also think about is like, if my money is going to this child, what does it take to reach this child? What type of team does it take to do all the programming that this child is now benefiting from? What kind of administrative support, fundraising support does that organization need to sustain? Those are real people living and breathing this work too. They need health insurance. They need to retire one day. They need to earn more than minimum wage and deserve to earn more than minimum wage. It's not just because we work for nonprofits that we're able to somehow stretch our dollars or our kwacha or our rands, further, right? And so that's what's tough in the donor space is, how do you keep them engaged? And we are so grateful when they are, and you have to keep that going. Then you have grants, of course, and that's where, we've shifted in the years. We're now about probably 50% private donors, 50% grants from foundations, international foundations. But today, with USAID closing, now almost a year ago, foundations are receiving 4 times the amount of applications that they ever did. So groups like ours are now competing with 4 times as many nonprofits, all doing great work, or most of them doing great work, right? So the funding space has become a very tricky place, and we're trying to navigate that right now.
And how do you do that? How do you stand out from the 4,000 others that are going to these foundations and going to gala dinners in New York and going around asking for the dollar from the school kids? How do you stand out?
I would say it's incredibly hard because, again, a lot of us are doing really, really good work, right? So how do you stand out? How do you tell your story in a way that resonates, that pulls at the heartstrings, but also shows how much impact you have? This gets tricky. I am white, and American, and I work in non-white spaces. That creates tension and insecurity for some donors because, of course, it's totally understandable. They want to fund local. They want to truly fund, the African leading their organization in their communities. And now we also do have those leaders. Don't get me wrong. I have this amazing leadership team, right, who are alumni from our program. They're from these communities, but it is hard to set yourself apart, especially when we're such a multifaceted organization. I envy organizations that just do clean water. I love those organizations, right? Because for this amount of money, they can put in a well and maintain a well, and this many thousand of people will not get disease. Their babies will be healthy. You know what I mean? Like clean water.
Something that you've got on the website that stood out for me, being the dad of two girls, you said 98% of participants avoiding pregnancy before 18 versus 15 to 20% locally. What's happening inside the program that's creating stats like that, such a big swing?
So, what we do differently, and this is why we stand out, is we are with our girls and our young women every day for years. And that is what it takes to get those pregnancy rates down. You have a lot of organizations that will say, we work with 20,000 girls in a year. That means that they had one workshop, maybe a day-long workshop, maybe a 2-hour workshop, right, on menstrual health. And to them, they've done enough to prevent early pregnancy. And I can tell you, it takes so much more. We start, with these girls when they're in primary school, elementary school, and we're with them all the way through college and university. That's what it takes. And we talk about that. They probably get sick of it, right? Because we're talking about menstrual health and reproductive health weekly with them. But that is what it takes to cut down those high early pregnancy rates. It's not a one-off workshop. It's not a one-day training. It's being there with them day in, day out, getting them to believe in themselves, getting them to realize that my dream isn't just a dream. I can really achieve that one day because I've seen my peers do it now. It also takes making sure there's food at home, right? Whether that's the daily meal they access with us or through our urban farming that we're now doing, showing families how to become food secure, even if they have a 1-by-1 meter, plot in their backyard, right? It takes a multifaceted approach, like we've talked about, right? Looking at all the challenges she's facing, opening enough doors so she overcomes those challenges, and then doesn't have to go out there to make a little money or, have a sugar daddy, or if there's abuse at home, she knows who to go to talk about it before it's too late. It takes being with them day in, day out for many, many years. And that's how you truly make change, whether it's for our girls not getting pregnant, whether it's for our children with disabilities not feeling stigmatized and knowing that they deserve to thrive too. That is what it takes. And I think that's what's hard in today's day and age is everyone's looking for that silver bullet. Now with AI, it's like, what is the AI-driven silver bullet, right? That can stop poverty, that can be scaled to hundreds and thousands, overnight. We need those types of initiatives too, don't get me wrong. But when you truly want to build communities and really change things at this grassroots systemic level, it takes decades. It takes generations.
That really tugs on heartstrings because I've seen a couple of NPOs and what we're trying to do is get kids off the street and into something that is meaningful. And, that big sister relationship of showing the better way. If they've never seen the better way, how are they going to find the better way? So I can imagine your alumni are really special people and I can't wait to meet some of them. Community work sounds inspiring and it sounds amazing. And, we go to the food kitchen and we serve a couple of meals and we think it's cool. But leading an organization like this, what are some of the leadership challenges that you don't get in the corporate world?
I think the greatest challenge is the fact that we're selling stories, right? We're selling impact. We operate the same exact way as any business, right? We have to do our budget forecasts. It's money in, money out. You got to track, right? You got to look at your cash flow reports. Just because we're a nonprofit doesn't mean we operate any differently, right, than a company. I think the biggest challenge is the fact that we do not have something tangible, right, to sell. I'm not saying it's easy. I've only run a nonprofit, not a for-profit or business, but I would imagine it's like the clean water too. It's a concrete thing that you're selling. Like, I know I've made this sweatshirt. It cost me X amount to make, and I'm going to sell it at this, and I need to sell this many to be able to cover my costs, right? And hopefully make a profit. We're selling stories. We're selling faith. We're selling hope.
To both the donor and to the families. So you got a double-edged sword here, and I think that's where the leadership, actually, I'm talking around how, these internal things that we don't see. We see you at a gala dinner and we give you a couple of $1,000. What are you struggling with on the other side, where the people are saying, "Give me the $1,000"? Where's that leadership challenge coming?
I think it comes in exactly what you're describing, is when you're working in such disadvantaged communities, it becomes very easy to be dependent on such services or to think they are owed to you, because there is a history here, right? In the context that we live. I know we could have a whole other podcast, right, on that. And so I think that's the greatest challenge, is getting our communities on the same level as us in terms of, this is not a handout. This is a hand up. Your child is not coming here just for a meal, because a lot of parents, that's for them, that's what it is. It's like, my kid gets a nutritious meal every day. That's what I want out of this. Not realizing that the meal is just making sure that the kids can focus when they're with us. It's all the extra programming. It's all the educational tutoring, the leadership development, the health programming that we do that's really going to get our children to reach a place of thriving. So how do you get your communities to buy into not just the handout, but the hand up, that this is something so that they don't have to depend on us? That dependency syndrome is really, really easy to get to. And I think it's something also that donors don't want to hear, right? They don't want to hear that it's complicated to work in these communities. They want to see the photo of the smiling child. Oh, my money helped Joshua do this and helped Faith and Sarah do that. And it's not complicated because they go to school now and everything's great, right? No, this is complicated. There's a lot of nuance to the work. There's a lot of complexity to the work. I think that's the greatest struggle. Dare I even say, sometimes money needs to be used to like expedite things, right? You are working in contexts where things will be held up by someone if you don't just expedite it. And anyone on the continent who's hearing the podcast knows exactly what I'm talking about. Our US folks maybe a little less, but donors don't want to hear that. So it is complicated work. It is messy work. It's not just all like rainbows and butterflies and yay, kids are in school and healthy now and they're going to go to college one day. We do have a girl a year who becomes pregnant. What about her?
Oh, it's so hard. It's so hard because you can't extricate yourself from the work. And in my own case, Jackie stopped working in NGO just because 16, 17-hour days are what's expected from an NPO leader. And it wasn't sustainable from our perspective. And she misses it every day. So I understand why you got stuck there like Velcro. Part of the work is raising money. And you've raised a couple of $1 million. You've been very good at it. If you need a sales job, I'm sure there's people that are looking around. When you started fundraising, you were at high school. It was easy to go around with a hat. What wasn't so obvious to you as you started to play, dare I say, in the bigger league? What wasn't as obvious to you?
I would say yes. It was a lot easier when we were just baking cookies and wrapping gifts, at the holidays to raise the $10,000, we needed for a container. I think what I underestimated is how hard it is to grow a donor base. If we're talking about private individuals, you were talking about gratitude, right? And we have to be grateful. How can I not be when I have folks who've been with me for literally 20 years, right? A donor who I wrapped a book for, in year one, and today her and her husband are our biggest donors. They're our biggest contributors, and they believe in this work so wholeheartedly, right? And believe in me as a leader. And I'm so grateful for them and all of our donors who've been with us for so long, right?
If you want to name them, you're welcome to.
Yeah, Jamie and Holly Holt, thank you, and big hugs. And so what I underestimated is how easy it would be to grow those private donors because, as you know, people give to people. If someone does out of the blue want to give $20 to Africa, let's put in quotes, they're going to go to Child Fund, UNICEF, a World Vision, right? They're going to go to the big dogs that they trust because it's a big name. Groups like ours at our size, people give to people. There's probably a good portion of our private donors to this day. They give more because they know me or my mom or one of the other founders. It's not necessarily because we do this work in Zambia or they care particularly about Zambia. They're inspired by us and what we've done. So how do you grow a private donor pool? Again, like we said, there's so much going on in the world today, right? How do you get someone to care about Zambia or Rwanda when stuff's going on in the backyard? And I think I really underestimated how hard it would be to grow, a private donor base. I think the second piece that's really hard that folks don't know, and I alluded to it earlier, is so many organizations depend on their workers working like your wife, 16, 17-hour days, minimum wage. Some of them are even eligible for the services they provide, right, in the nonprofit because they're making so little money. Nonprofits rarely can offer benefits, right? Why? Because I work at a nonprofit. Should I not have health insurance? I'm still human at the end of the day. So also getting donors, whether it's private donors or foundations, to recognize admin and overhead isn't a dirty word in the nonprofit world. Nonprofits need admin and overhead funds so that we can treat our employees right, so that we can keep them going and being happy to come to work and not burning out every 3 or 6 months or a year because they just are asked to do the impossible, right? That's what we're being asked. So, and then on the foundation side, it's the same thing. I underestimated how much of it is relationship building. Yes, it comes down to a good application, but it's also all about the networking. It's about raising the visibility of our organization. And that's where, I've struggled as a leader. Because I often question my voice, again, as a white person working in non-white spaces. Who am I to say I'm an expert in any one of these issues? Why should I be boasting about our work or who I am as a leader? But that's what it takes, right? Like being present on LinkedIn and all the social networks. I mean, we've gotten grants out of connecting on social media before. I definitely underestimated how much relationship building it takes to steward the support we need.
There's so much to unpack there. I think the question I'd love to pick your brain on as I put my old man glasses on, if you could give one piece of advice to a business when considering supporting or donating to a cause, what would it be?
I would say think about your impact and how that impact can actually align with the goals you have as a business, right? A lot of times businesses, when they're doing their corporate social responsibility, they think it's a one-off, right? Like this year I have my budget here, right? I need to spend X amount and I want my name on it to get a bit of a return on this. So I'm going to build a classroom block and I'm going to feel good about myself because I did that. That's great. Building a classroom block is great, right? But who's going to sustain that classroom block for the next 10, 20, 30 years? Who's going to make sure the teacher has the right resources in that classroom block for the next 10, 20, 30 years? Who's going to make sure the kids have food so they actually learn when they go into that classroom block? So I think I would push corporate leaders, business leaders, when they're really thinking about their corporate social responsibility, stop looking at it as these one-off, maybe annual projects, and have a CSR plan, have something that builds on its stuff so that you have impact for the long term. And also, it can still align with what your business is trying to achieve, right? It could help build up a community who ends up being consumers for you or who ends up being your employees or feeds into your company somehow. So if you stop thinking of it as these one-off marketing projects and actually look at it from a community building standpoint and then how that can feed into your company one day, you're going to have so much more impact. And you're also going to do your company good too, right? And that's what we're at the African Education Program also trying to step into. We have been doing this for 20 years. We know what it takes to create long-term change in communities that we serve, right? So we actually want to work with corporations. We want to work with businesses to develop their CSR strategies so that it aligns with what they want to do as a company, and that we can also help guide how you can truly make the longest impact in the community you want to serve.
If you had a do-over in the last 20 years, if you had a do-over, was there one thing where you buggered it up so badly and you thought, oh, if I could do that one again, what would it be? Apart from coming on this podcast, which is like, what a mistake. Damn it.
No, this has been a pleasure. I've loved the conversation. Honestly, it's not a I effed up moment. I think for me, it's about how we would have used our funds in the earliest of days, especially as founders, especially as you're growing your baby. Again, you want to have the most immediate impact, right? Like every dollar we spent in the early days went directly to kids, right? Everyone was volunteers. Everyone was putting in what they could. And I wish we had put 10 to 15% of donations aside into a portfolio to earn interest, because I can't even imagine. I don't even want to do the math. If we had done that starting day one, we'd already have an endowment and we'd be far less stressed about raising money each and every day had we simply started putting money aside and earning interest off of it from day one. I would also, invest in assets. Again, what's so hard is your donors want your money going right to the kids. You want your money going right to the kids. So your money's going to go right to the kids, right? No one wants to see that you've bought a car with their donation. But I can tell you the amount of money that we have spent on transportation alone, we could have a fleet of 20 cars probably that are making money, when we're not using it, instead of still putting out money for transportation today, right? I wish we had bought land, that we either could have built on or sold later. And so I think if you're starting a new nonprofit, really think about the long term. And a lot of people don't. I think they do it to feel good, and they don't realize about 2, 3, 4 years in, it's hard. It's hard work, like from doing the work itself to raising the money to do the work. So I just wish we had thought about how to become sustainable early on, as opposed to, oh my gosh, every single dollar needs to go to these, 50 children that we were working with at the time.
There is so much wisdom there. And I think for anyone listening that is considering starting an NPO, that treadmill of money has to be created, or else you're going to be going to donors all the time. You don't have all the say. You can't always do what you want because donors have a lot of sway. It's a very tough thing working with volunteers and working with people where they're giving out of the goodness of their heart. So I get that, and I think, yeah, that's really wise. So think about it. Think about the long term. Think about your savings. Cash in bank is not cash available for the cause. It's to build the organization and move forward sensibly as a business person. That's fantastic. We got a couple of questions left. I've really enjoyed this, Julie-Anne. One of the last questions: how do people get hold of you? How do they learn more about AEP? And where do you need your biggest help?
So you can reach us on, I believe, almost all social media platforms, maybe not TikTok. I don't think we're TikToking yet. We're working on it. But our website is africaneducationprogram.org. Program is spelled the American way for our British English spellers. Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, X, YouTube. Just look up African Education Program. Yeah, we're there. We're an elephant logo. You'll find us. And honestly, if it's financial, what we need is trust-based, unrestricted support. We have been doing this for a really long time. We have the impact and the statistics to prove what we do works. We need you to trust us and just let us do the work. And we're really advocating for that in the greater space, right? Pushing foundations and private donors to move more toward trust-based philanthropy, because When foundations or donors ask us for custom reporting, ask us for custom metrics, decide they want to fund this project this specific way, otherwise we're not getting the money, it hinders what we're actually able to do. So I would say trust-based giving, whether it's to the African Education Program or any nonprofit that you're looking to support, please be trust-based and just give and let us do, what we do best. If it's non-financial, you'd be surprised how many nonprofit organizations are looking for volunteers. And that doesn't mean you have to travel to Zambia to read to kids or teach something. This is a virtual world, right? This is a remote work world. Whatever your skill set is, there's a good chance a nonprofit probably needs it and they don't have the money to pay for someone like that, right? So if you really do have the time to dedicate yourself to a small project or give your skill set for a certain amount of time, I guarantee you there's a nonprofit that'd be willing to work with you and would be eager to work with you.
Oh, that's so good. That is such a nice call to action. In the show notes, we will put Julie-Anne's contact details. Please reach out. And from a team perspective, if you've got a sales team or you've got a management team that wants to get involved in something, we all have skills that can make a difference and can change lives. I think that's amazing. I've got last question for you. This is a bit of a off-piste question. What is the 1%, the one thing that makes living and working in Zambia, the developing world, largely without the luxuries you grew up with, worth it for you? Why are you not moving back to Philly?
I think it's the story I told earlier. I do it for the people. I do it for these individuals whose, not just that their lives have drastically changed thanks to the work that we do, but it's that they've taken that change and now are driving the same change forward. Again, it's not about the thousands of people that we reach. And honestly, there's always bad apples in a group, right? Not all of our children are perfect. Not all of our work is perfect. As we've already discussed, things are messy, things are complicated. But when I see these success stories come to fruition now, and truly my colleagues and even those who aren't working with me but are doing it in their communities in different ways, that's why I do it. It's the people. It's always the people.
I went on a run in London a couple of months ago, 10Ks. It was a nice run. I got greeted by 3 people. I went on a run this morning around my neighborhood, same kind of distance. I probably got greeted by 100 people. Africa just operates in a different rhythm. For our listeners out there who have never been to the continent, please can I encourage you to come. Julie-Anne works in one of the most beautiful countries in the world. It's booming at the moment with copper. It's booming with the development. It's really a very interesting place. But around it, from South Africa all the way through, is filled with the same people. And I just want to thank you, Julie-Anne, for what you're doing for the people around you in your community, for Zambia and for Africa. We need more people like that, like what you are doing. And for us who are in corporate, who get to work and get to work on the number and get to chase targets, and that it's nice every now and then to pause and think, wow, we can make a difference at grassroots. So from us at Growth Matters, thank you very much for being a guest and for being so gracious. To all of our audience, I hope you have a stunning day and I hope you hit your quota, make some numbers, and be amazing at whatever you're doing. Thanks for listening to this episode of Because Growth Matters. If you found this conversation valuable, I'd really appreciate it if you could take a moment to rate this show 5 stars on the platform you're listening from and share it with someone who would benefit from the conversations. Make sure to follow or subscribe so you don't miss next week's episode. See you then.